Welcome back everyone to the part of the top 100 list that is 80 through to 71. Another batch of 10 games which are definitely better than the last lot but not quite as good as the next lot coming. Let's dive into the list. Number 80 is a really good spin on Dixit. Dixit has these wonderful artwork cards, and Detective Club puts sort of a hidden traitor-ish sort of spin on it. Basically, one player around the group is going to get a blank pad, while everyone else is getting a name or a word or a thing or something on their pad. So everyone is playing a card starting with the person that gives the word out, and everyone around the table is playing a card from their hand. Say the words water. Maybe they've played a card with a boat on it. The next person has played something and you're sat there not knowing what the word is and you've played a desert. It's not a great start. You go round, you do two cards, and then you have to explain why you did. So maybe you go, well, the exact, what would you be looking for in a desert? Water, obviously. Now, that might sound like a relatively bad thing to have done, but the crux of this one that makes it kind of fun is even people that know the word often don't have great cards to do that. So their excuse, despite knowing the word, might be worse than your desert water one. It's got glorious, glorious artwork. It does come in a metal tin, which not everyone's going to be up for, but Detective Club is a lot of fun and a really good twist on that sort of cool artwork card genre or sub-genre that sort of is a thing. Check it out. Whether you like Hidden Traitor or not, it could be a good game for you. From almost one end of the spectrum to the other, my 79 is Anno 1800. Now, this game does come with a lot of good baggage for me, and that's because it's one of my favourite computer games. The Anno series, since I've been really young, is a sort of a game on computer that's always amazed me, enticed me, and the board game is a really good implementation of it. Basically, in Anno, either board game or on the computer, it's all about building these production chains. So, yeah, I've got sand, that can then make glass, glass is needed for windows. You've got stuff like, I've got pigs, that means, let's go for another one. I've got corn, then I can make bread, but I could also maybe use some of those hops or something for beer later on. And the twist is that you're trying to normally please different types of people, different types of workers. You're sort of everyday sort of worker in this 1800s period. They're just wanting food, sort of that sort of stuff. They're wanting really low down basic sort of things. As they advance in sort of complexity for their needs, maybe they want refined foods, special tailored clothes and stuff like that, and you are effectively building out these production chains in a really cool way in this board game that mirrors the sort of chains from the PC game. Now, what's great about this is the interaction between players, because there's only so many of each tile, and that means that all of a sudden I need to use what you've got over there, and there's little benefits that person's going to get. It's not like I'm going to take your wheat away from you, you won't be able to use that, but I've paid for it. No, they just get a little bonus sort of for you doing it. And it's those perfect production chains of I need this, and that's making that, which is going to be what I need. Really interesting, but quite a complex game, but it still has a really good interaction between the players because there's only so many of those tiles of each resource. Really recommend it if you're a fan of the computer game like me, but also if you like the logics of following production chains and stepping stuff through. Number 78 is a game that I don't actually have in my collection. I think that's going to be caveated with yet. And this is because I've played it with numerous people, be it with the gaming group that I normally play with in Chelmsford. Also, a couple of my friends have a copy. So it's sort of one of those games where I've been able to play it quite a lot and be introduced to Concordia without actually having to own it. But I kind of do want it for that time where I'm not in Chelmsford or whatever, and I'm playing with different people, because it's a really pleasant game. And it all revolves around this sort of the deck that you're building up. You start off and you've got this small deck of cards, and you play one, and that maybe allows you to move your worker, your person or your boat a little bit around. The next one's maybe allowing you to do something slightly different, maybe buy a card from the market, and then you're gaining all these cards, you're doing all these different benefits. One of the cards is copy someone else's top card. That's a really interesting choice of when to play that. And then the final thing you're going to do ish on your cards, sometimes you'll do it early, sometimes you won't, is to basically play a card that brings everything back to you. But it's going to give you more or less depending on how many cards you've played. So it's incentivizing you to play more of your cards before you recoup them. But some of the cards are definitely better than others. So sometimes it's worth getting them back quicker to play them again. And there's a load of interesting choices, expansions, there's so many different maps, played it at various different player counts, and it's always worked and played really well. And yeah, be it with fish, be it with the salt being wild and all that sort of stuff, it's a really good experience, and that's Concordia. Number 77 is a game that I kind of backed on a hope and turned out to be really good and enjoyable, and that is Marvel Dice Throne. And I've got the sort of the big box, but you can get smaller packs where it's just like 2 of the characters if you want to sort of give it a dabble. Now, I originally played Dice Throne, and I played it in a multiplayer sort of environment. There was 3 or 4 of us, and it was at best okay. What's really dragged this one up is the theming. I'm a bit of a Marvel fan. I think that theme works really well to sort of make these characters feel unique and feel like the characters they're trying to portray. The other thing that's made this set and the sort of system in general much higher for me is I've started playing it at 2 players, where you're not having to worry about who you're targeting, you're not having to worry about one player being knocked out quicker, the different sort of rules around targeting and all that. It's simply you versus an opponent. You're trying to roll your dice. It's got that luck of trying to get that Yahtzee dice rolls where you're trying to get them in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or something like that. You're trying to roll so many of a certain symbol because that's going to allow you to do this power or that power. You can spend cards, points to play cards that upgrade your attacks. So maybe you're then, as well as damaging your opponent, you're throwing a token at them. Maybe that token means they're not getting to play a card or something that round. All in all, it's a really cool system. Just, I would never advise playing it with more than 2 people because it works so smoothly at 1v1. I wouldn't want to play it with more players. That extra targeting it dragged it down, and then it was just a bit of okay, I'll give it another attempt with the Marvel version, and I'm so glad I did. That's Marvel Dice Throne. Next up is a big box, which is behind me-ish on the shelf, Suburbia, and this is the collector's edition. Now, I don't think you need that collector's edition. In fact, a lot of the tiles that are in that box stay in the box when we play because it's got all of most of the expansions. But I do like throwing in some of the promo tiles or maybe one expansion here or there because it just shakes things up. In Suburbia, you are building out sort of a city in this hexagonal grid, and when you're placing tiles, they sort of, depending on what's placed next to what, it's going to score points, or maybe in terms of your population and different, so you've got like 2 different types of points that you're having to keep in balance, because the more people you have, it's detrimental because that's costing you more on certain things. I'm not going to explain that system very well because it's actually been a couple of months at least since I played Suburbia now. But that logic of I'm building this out, I'm placing this tile here because it's going to, I can score it for the tiles that it's next to, or another tile where it's, okay, how many of the green tiles do you have in your sort of city that you've built out? That's a really nice, satisfying sort of way to build out. Everyone feels like they've built their own little sort of city with airports, restaurants, be that fast food or not, because they, again, it's depending on what way you go. It's like if you've got a fine dining, you don't want a fast food restaurant and stuff. Some really good sort of interactions between those tiles. And yeah, it's a massive box full of tiles, trays and stuff. It's nice. You don't need this super sort of collector's edition though. The base game is really good fun, and that's Suburbia. From a big box to a small tiny bluffing card game called Spicy. Spicy is a game where you have 3 suits and you're trying to get rid of your cards. So you've got wasabi, you've got chili, and you've got pepper. They're different colours and they've got numbers. Effectively, on your turn, you're able to play at the start of a round. It's like you can play 1, 2 or 3, and after that you can play a card higher, up to a value of 10. It's bluffing because once a suit has been named, so someone says 2 of wasabi, it must be a wasabi. At least you must say that it is a wasabi, and that's where it gets interesting, because as your hand gets smaller and smaller, all of a sudden, maybe I don't have any wasabis left. Okay, I'll play this, and that's a 6 wasabi. Everyone looks around going, oh, that's probably unlikely, and maybe someone calls you out on it. Now, that's normally pretty much game over in many bluffing games, but Spicy puts a twist on that by saying they have to guess correctly whether you're lying about the suit or the number. So they'd have to say, I don't think that's a 6. You turn it over, it was a 6, but it wasn't a wasabi. You were lying, but they were still wrong. So they're going to, so basically, the person that's wrong draws cards and the other person's going to get some points, the person that was either correct or didn't get caught bluffing. Now, the way this goes is you get down to these really small hands, people end up calling you out because if you get all of your cards out, you get a bonus, and then partway through the deck, the game ends, so it's already whoever's got the most points, so you don't want someone else to get that bonus. But if you call them incorrectly, you're not going to be helping yourself. You're helping them. What do you do? And I find Spicy works really well with people that don't sort of like bluffing too much. Because if they laugh, give it away, or are a bit sheepish about the bluffing, in other games, there's no point in them playing. In Spicy, they still have a chance because you have to guess whether it's the suit or the number. Throw in the fact there's wild cards, which are any suit but don't have a number, so you're always wrong on the number, or any number but don't have a suit, so you always can get called out on that. That's a really good twist just to add it, and there's other cards that you can introduce for just twisting up the gameplay. Spicy is super fun, check it out. Number 74 is a dexterity game all about flicking discs. It's not potentially the one you instantly think about, it's Pathways. Now, there's a great video of us flicking, having a lot of fun with it on the channel, so do go and check that out if this sounds remotely fun. But effectively, it's a pubbish sort of game. It feels like a game that you could play pretty much anywhere. It's this bamboo sort of board with lots of holes in the middle. You're flicking a disc from your sort of starting zone and trying to get across this field of gaps and trying to get into the back line sort of from where you're sat, and that's your opponent's sort of scoring zone. So you're trying to get your sort of tokens, your discs in there as you're flicking across. Now, you're not going to do that too often, unless you're really good, that is, But what you'll do is they'll start going halfway and falling into a gap. And all of a sudden, what was a board full of holes has lots of them starting to fill up and creating pathways across the board. It's a really fun, quick game where you never just play once. You get out, you flick about, and straight away you win, you lose, you lift the board, you sweep back your tokens, and you go again. It's one of my most played dexterity games because it's so quick to get to the table. And once it's at the table, you are playing easily 4 or 5 games of this because it's so quick, so easy, and you can just sit there chatting, flicking away, have a bit of a drink. Super chilled, relaxed dexterity fun. There's a couple of other twists you can do on it, but that's my favourite, where it's just the standard version and you're flicking and hoping. And you can do some great trick shots where you flick, you hit one of your other pieces that's not quite dropped into a gap, and maybe you knock both of those into your opponent's, into the scoring zone, your opponent's back line. And that feels fantastic when you manage it. 2 points in a turn? Absolutely incredible. I don't know how hard or easy it is to pick it up because it was a Kickstarter thing, but Pathways, a lot of fun. Number 73 actually surprised me at how low down this was, and I think it's just because you need a good amount of players. It doesn't really work if you've got sort of just 4-ish sort of players. It really does need that sort of 5 to 7 range, and that's just 1. It's a fantastic party game when you have that number though. Everyone is, or one person takes a card and says a number 1 to 5. That gives them a word. Everyone's then writing a 1-word clue secretly for that word for them to guess it. But before you show it to them, everyone compares what they were going to say. And if 2 people or more have matched, you rub that clue off, the person doesn't get it. Now, why I think it works better at sort of the big player range is at small player counts, you know, when you've got 4 players, 3 people giving a clue, yeah, they can overlap, and they often will, and it'll mean you've maybe got 1 clue to guess from, and that's quite hard. Often you do need 2 or 3 clues to work out what your word is. At the high player count, you still get that, but it's much more funny and sort of it feels better. It's like, hang on, I've got 1 clue. There's like 5 of you, 6 of you that should be giving me clues here. How bad did you all do to match so much? You never want to give a clue that's too obvious, because someone else will. But then is everyone thinking, I'm not going to write the obvious word down, so everyone's writing down really abstract clues. It's a really good one. I think it's just that fact that it's not easy to get to the table, or it's not as good, in my opinion, to get to the table with a lower player count. And that's why it's down here on the list. But still, just 1. It won a lot of awards, so it is a good game. My number 72 is a game that you are constantly going to be fiddling around with in your hands, as in Planet you are making a 3D planet, because you've got this basically empty planet board. It's like a 3D sort of thing you're holding in your hand, and on your turn you're going to be taking a tile and attaching it magnetically to that, I think it's like a dodecahedron or something like that. It's one of those things. It's got so many different sides on it, like 12 different sides on it, something like that. And each time you're adding these tiles on, and it's making sort of like these territories. So you're like, all right, this bit of ice goes all the way around here. It's a really cool sort of 3-dimensional puzzle as you're trying to, in some cases, get big areas of ice to win the animal cards in the middle for that round. Next time you're trying to get like bits of desert, but the number of deserts, not a big blob of them. So maybe yours is connected, so you've only got 2 because you've got this massive desert here and a teeny bit here, but someone else has got 5 dotted around, not connected. And sometimes it's areas of, say, water that's not touching ice. So There's so many different objectives, you're never going to be able to get all of them, but you're still creating this really cool planet that's so hard not to just constantly be spinning in your hand. And for that, it's a lot of fun, and that's Planet. And my last game on the list, the version flicks back and forth of which one, but I do think I prefer and would recommend over the original Mysterium Park. Again, it's one of those games with Dixit-like cards, a bit like Detective Club I mentioned earlier on this 10, where you would, in this case, be giving one of those weird cards to each of the players as the ghost. You're trying to, in this case, hint of where on this grid they should be looking for. In the original Mysterium, it's like a person, place and an object. In this version, in Mysterium Park, you're only looking at 2 of those. So it shortens the game down a little bit, and with the setup, it's all on a central board rather than having to set up this cool screen. The original has that cool screen of everything being set up, and you've got that Cluedo-like thing of the person, the place, the location, and I like that. But for timing, being able to get this game to the table, played, it's just that bit quicker. The setup's a bit smoother. It's a little shorter overall. Mysterium Park, it's really cool when you're given this clue and you're like, right, this has got some weird, wonderful artwork. How am I going to deduce this to work out what place I'm supposed to be looking at? Maybe I don't get it right this round, so I get another clue. Right, now I'm comparing 2 completely different ones, but what's the link here? What's the link between these cards and one of the locations? Well, this one's quite greeny and underwatery. That's got like a pond in that location. That sort of vibe, that's what you're going with. Yes, you do need that one player to play the ghost, but it's actually quite good fun to have these cards and be giving the clues out. There's not too much downtime waiting for a clue, or once you've given the clues out, seeing what the other people actually think of your probably bad clues. But yeah, a lot of fun, Mysterium Park. And that pretty much wraps up, well it does, it wraps up this 10. If you've not seen from the start of the list, go back and check it out. There is a playlist with all of the videos of that. And at some point, if it's not already out, there will also be the next 10 for you to watch. What have you thought of these 10 games though? Am I massively right, massively wrong? Let me know in the comment section below. Stay subscribed for the rest of the list and so much more content. Until next time, have a great day gaming.